Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for joining us. Tonight, a verdict in a case against a Windsor police officer. Jason Vio brings us our top story.
A Windsor police sergeant has been found not guilty of assault after a fight in a bar bathroom in Ottawa. The judge said that she believed Sergeant Deller Ball acted in self-defense when he first put his hands on Donald Connor inside of that bathroom. And she also points to some significant contradictions in Connor's testimony throughout the trial. Now, here is what happened inside that bathroom at Ottawa's Prohibition Public House back in September of 2023. Connor was inside the only stall in the men's washroom at that pub. The lock didn't work, so he was loosely holding it closed with his hand. Ball came in and tried to push the door open and quickly realized someone was in there, the court heard during the trial. Ball then went to use the urinal. After Connor left the stall, the two men, who had never met each other before this moment, exchanged some words. Each person testified to a different version of what was said and how the violence escalated. The judge did say Ball answered rationally while not embellishing his testimony and pointed to contradictions in Connor's testimony. The court heard that Connor was insistent that Ball check the broken stall lock. Ball said he apologized again and ordered Connor to leave the washroom once things started to escalate. The judge accepted evidence that Connor then stepped closer to Ball, which is when the officer used two hands to push him away. The court heard that Connor latched on to Ball's hoodie, and that's when Ball said he punched Connor twice in the face with the goal of breaking that grip. The scuffle continued when Ball said Connor lifted him off the ground, slammed him into the wall, and pulled that hoodie over his head. The judge pointed to some inconsistencies in Connor's testimony, where he once said he didn't pull Ball's sweater over his head because it had a zipper or buttons, but then said he intentionally jerseyed him by pulling the sweater over his head, similar to what hockey players may do in a fight. The fight spilled out into the hall, where Ball is seen punching Connor again before the altercation ends. Ultimately, the judge said Ball was a credible and reliable witness and that his actions were reasonable given the circumstances, and he was later found not guilty of assault. Jason Vio, CBC News, Windsor.
You can officially start voting in the Ontario election. CBC's Chris Ensing breaks down what you need to know.
People in Windsor are casting provincial ballots while it snows outside. This is a very rare type of election, a snap one called in light of the tariff threat over across the border. But this was the first day people could really vote and say what they think needs to happen at the provincial level. And we're finding out that people are excited to pop in and mark a ballot.
Kind of surprised that the parking lot is sort of full already.
I'm going to go vote and get it early in and make the best candidate win.
Some of the first folks to cast a ballot in Windsor West, this seat a pivotal one. The NDP trying to hold on to it, the Progressive Conservatives looking to win for the first time in decades. Election Day is Thursday, February 27th. 5 advanced voting locations have opened in Windsor this week. You can find which one you can vote at by going to the Elections Ontario website, entering your postal code, and selecting Voting Early. This gives you a list of locations where you can cast a ballot between 10 in the morning to 8 at night this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Those days don't work? Well, you can vote any day at your local election office. You do not need a voter card or photo identification. You only need a piece of ID with your name and address. So a pay stub, bank statement, even a utility bill will do.
It's easy. It's super easy. Yeah. Took me not even a minute in there. So if you can spare some time to get out in the winter, why not?
Do you think that the snow is going to play a role in the attendance, the amount of people who are voting?
Not here, no. Maybe Toronto, yes. Here, no.
Windsor might have a leg up in snow clearing, but we're well behind in voter turnout. Only a third of people who could vote last provincial election marked a ballot in this riding, one of the lowest turnouts in Ontario.
I can't make anybody else's decision. That's up to them, though. But I urge people to go and vote, because if you do not go and vote, in my opinion, you do not have a right to complain afterwards.
Chris Ensing, CBC News, Windsor.
It is time to zero in on the riding of Sarnia-Lambton in this Ontario election. It is the busiest race in our region, with a whopping 9 candidates vying for your votes in a riding that's been held by the PCs for 18 years. Bob Bailey is the familiar face from Petrolia, hoping to hold on to that seat. He declined CBC's request for an interview. So who is hoping to snag the spot? For the Greens, Pamela Reed, a teacher and small business owner. I was told she was not able to take part in any interviews. For the Liberals, Rachel Wilsey, a nurse for 15 years and a nurse educator, with healthcare one of her top priorities.
We have 2.5 million people without family doctors. As a healthcare provider, that's close to my heart. We are also suffering with social housing concerns. There's the lack of social housing. We've got encampments eroding all over the city at this point. And a lot of what's caused these issues are fundamentally not being addressed. So the mental health, the addictions, access to support service, we are really in a legitimate crisis in Sarnia-Lambton, and it's continued to grow.
Candace Young is running for the NDP. She is Anishinaabe from Kettle and Stony Point First Nation, born and raised in Sarnia, and a math professor at Lambton College. Education, healthcare, and housing are her key priorities.
Because of my activism in the labor union, and also because of my activism for being an active participant in truth and reconciliation, I believe meaningful action is important. And we need to make sure that we support the people who are doing meaningful actions for people and putting people first. And I do believe that an NDP government will do that. And me as an MPP will also do that for Sarnia-Lambton.
And then you've got another handful of candidates pushing against legacy party approaches. For the new Blue Party, you've got geologist Keith Benn.
We need to reignite a spark that will become a raging fire of common sense conservatism.
For the Ontario Libertarian Party, there's Jacques Boudreau fighting for personal liberties.
My concerns of unfunded liabilities, of excessive regulation and red tape would apply in every riding of this province.
Former Sarnia City Councillor Nathan Colquhoun is running as an independent.
We're just being ignored, and I think that I would have a better way of getting more things done for our community.
Mark Lamore running for the Ontario Party.
Our motto is freedom, family, and faith.
The final candidate is Tom Stokas with the Populist Party, but he did not respond to my request for an interview. So definitely a busy race with a full spectrum of options, from the status quo to some alternative choices. We'll have to wait and see if the seat will get flipped after 18 years. Chris Potter joins us now for a first look at weather. Chris, how's it looking?
Yeah, we're still dealing with a lot of cloud cover, Kat, and some scattered flurries. That's starting to wind down. The system responsible, very weak weather maker. It continues to dive south of the lower Great Lakes. We still have that northerly wind, so we're still seeing some lake effect snow moving in towards Goderich, Grand Bend, and in towards London. So if that's where you're headed, be prepared for reduced visibilities. But everything will start to wind down as we get through the overnight. Temperatures anywhere from -6 to -11, and it's going to feel a little bit cooler, of course, with the winds. -9 for the overnight, -8 for tomorrow morning with a mix of sun and cloud, and -3 for the afternoon with a mix of sun and cloud as well. We'll talk about your weekend where it warms up coming up.
Sounds good. Thank you, Chris.
You got it.
Up next, Unifor is expressing concerns after media reports that Stellantis will be temporarily pausing work on their Jeep Compass as it, quote, reassesses its product strategy in a dynamic environment. That includes work at the Brampton assembly plant. Unifor represents workers at the plant. President Lana Payne says that the company is reassuring them that production plans are still in place for the vehicle, but the timing of the announcement raises serious concerns for its members. In a statement, Payne says the chaos and uncertainty plaguing the North American auto industry, which is under the constant threat of tariffs and a dismantling of EV regulations from the United States, are having real-time impacts on workers and corporate decisions. I want to remind everyone that Stellantis is contractually committed to this vehicle program, and we expect the company to live up to its commitments to our members and to the Government of Canada and Ontario. The Brampton plant, which has been down since early 2024 to prepare for the new production line, had about 3,000 employees before closing. Trump's tariff threats hang over our city. Tariffs on most goods paused until March, but President Trump has also threatened 25% tariffs on vehicles going into the United States starting in April. And that has workers in our city's auto sector bracing for impact. For more, I'm joined by the federal labor minister, Stephen McKinnon. Thank you very much for being here, Minister.
Thanks for having me.
Obviously, we keep hearing about how devastating these tariffs will be, especially in our city. And you've been meeting with union leaders today. Yes. What is your message to people who are worried?
Well, that's why I'm here, in fact, to hear from business people, to hear from working men and women, their union representatives, and of course I speak to union representatives at the national level too. Obvious concern. What I tell them is that our first job as Canadians is to make sure that these tariffs don't happen, and we continue to work every day with ministers and their counterparts in the United States, with people in Congress and the Senate, and so on. And there's good reason to believe that our message is getting through. But should they happen, Canada will retaliate, and that will hurt. That will hurt Americans, particularly perhaps in the auto sector, even more than it will hurt us. As any auto worker in this community knows, when you disable the supply chain in the way that tariffs would, that will cause major pileups in terms of these factories, in terms of the cars that go back and forth across borders, Mexican border, Canadian border. And the president, someone no less than the president of Ford Motor Company has said this will paralyze and disadvantage the North American automobile industry, the last thing we should be doing. So we're reminding our U.S. friends of this, and we hope that common sense will prevail.
So aside from retaliation, what about relief if this does move forward? What will we see specifically from the government?
Well, here's another great example where Canada has a real strategic advantage. We have a safety net. Now, needless to say, workers would prefer to be working. We know that. And we can't promise there would not be pain. There will be pain if there is a tariff war between our two countries. It would be very unfortunate. But Canada has a robust safety net that we would make even more robust in the case of tariffs, and particularly try and target those in trade-exposed industries. Automobiles would clearly be among them. And we would try and make benefits longer, make sure that people are laid off, or are not laid off, rather, by these companies in any kind of a rash way. So putting in place what we call job sharing, and just making sure that people are entitled to more benefits than they ordinarily would be.
And just lastly, we're standing in Windsor. We can see Detroit from this building through the window. It's a really tense relationship right now. What do you make of this moment? Yeah, well, I think that people should keep going on with their lives. I understand there's an obvious, feeling of apprehension in the air, but I'm following this tunnel bus debate. I sure hope you don't get rid of the tunnel bus. That's one of the legendary things about this city. Right. Yeah. And I think that people should go about their lives, not panic. There's no cause for panic. We think that, again, common sense will prevail. Tariffs would hurt U.S. consumers, cause high inflation, high interest rates. We think that ultimately common sense will prevail. That doesn't mean we won't be going through some trying times. We maybe will. We all know the volatility on that side of the river. We're trying to be calm about this. We have a plan. We have a plan to try and prevent it. Should that fail, we have a plan to try and take care of Canadians. Thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Stephen McKinnon is our federal labor minister. The federal heritage minister has proposed a new funding mechanism for the CBC, one set in law, independent of federal budgets. She said CBC needs stable, predictable, and better funding, and she passionately defended its role.
We know that our means of communications are controlled, in most parts, by tech billionaire oligarchs in the United States. More than ever, it's important for Canadians to be able to rely on their own sources of information made by and for Canadians. Radio-Canada, CBC, has been there for the past 100 years through conservative and liberal governments. It is more relevant than ever. While presenting her blueprint for reforming CBC's mandate, she also suggested keeping news programs ad-free and removing fees for such services as streaming. The minister said the public broadcaster is a pillar of Canada's cultural identity and sovereignty. But Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre said he wants to cut what he called wasteful spending on CBC.
A live look outside there, the sun setting, temperatures dipping down to -11 tonight and then going back up to a high of -3 tomorrow. When we come back, Canada versus the U.S. in the Four Nations Face-Off Final. Stay with us. Welcome back. The stage is set for one of hockey's most intense rivalries. Canada and the United States meet again to battle it out in the Four Nations Face-Off Final. But the atmosphere is even more charged than usual. As CBC's Jamie Strachan explains, political tensions between the two countries has brought national pride to a fever pitch.
Cannon like they were in game one that they had. It's a game that has all the hallmarks of a potential classic. The kind of game you remember where you were when it happened.
Here's the puck fired in by McAvoy.
Canada versus the United States, the best players from each country facing off for the first time in more than a decade in the championship of an international tournament. And if there wasn't enough hype, the simmering tensions between the two countries has elevated the stakes. President Trump wishing the U.S. team luck and again calling Canada the 51st state, and Justin Trudeau a governor. Trump spoke to the U.S. team today.
We're pretty jacked up anyways, but I think it's just one of those things where you'll look back on it, that you get to, have a phone call with the President of the United States, and just a cool moment for sure.
Trump's trolling and the widening rift has elevated interest beyond traditional hockey circles. Canadian players and coaches very aware of what's at stake and that millions around the world and back in Canada will be watching.
When you get the most competitive guys in the league on the ice together, it's going to raise another level. When you're playing for your country, you do whatever it takes to win. And
I don't. Other than the fact that the talk of the 51st state, and then somebody saying, wow, we'd have one hell of a hockey team.
Canadian fans will definitely be outnumbered in Boston, but many proudly made the trip.
We drove 10 hours to get here, so it's pretty exciting to come over to Boston and just see them play.
It's been a great series to watch, but also just everything in politics these days, it just seems like something you can't miss.
In a city rich in sports history, this is one of the toughest tickets in recent memory. The cost to get in, about $1,200 Canadian. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Boston.
For more on this, video producer Mike Evans paid a visit to a local sports academy, and he spoke with both Canadian and American players to see how they're taking all of this in.
You have to respect everyone's anthems and just play the game. I felt like I triggered them and it just made them play better. The game started off well with 3 fights, so it was an entertaining start. There's always chirping, there always will be. It'd be nice to watch the game with Canadians and Americans.
Kind of pumped all the boys up, got them all fired up. Every goal, everyone was chirping all the Americans. There's obviously more Canadians than Americans on our team. Yeah, when America got their second goal, it kind of quieted everyone up. I kind of hope that the Americans boo Canadian anthem, so it fires them all up, get them going. Go Canada.
3 fights in the first 9 seconds is it's insane. I knew that Canada was going to bounce back and beat Finland. I knew that this was all setting up to be Canada-USA in the finals. Go Canada.
Everyone got up, everyone was cheering, got super loud. All the goals, surprised there wasn't many noise complaints from the rooms nearby. I was surrounded actually on all sides by the Canadians, and every single one of them made sure to give me a tap on the shoulder, and they were in my ear.
Why were the fans booing the American anthem?
Probably something politically related. I know the tariffs just got implemented between the countries, and I'm guessing it was something to do with that. I just don't think there's a place in the game for that kind of stuff. I know that there are quite a few people and families on the team with clashing belief systems, but in the end, we all get along, and we don't let that separate us. The biggest argument between my team, I guess, was, Canada's gonna win because they have the more superstars, and the superstars only get you so far because a lot of them learn to play individually, maybe, as opposed to, I think the United States has a more depth to the roster. Go USA.
I was definitely a little nervous, don't want to lose, because all these Canadian guys they'd chirp me a lot, so some could say it was Canada won 2 out of 3 fights, but personally I think USA won 2 out of 3. I think I have a USA sweatshirt that I might be wearing, and I might be throwing some chirps to my billets and stuff if we do score, but hopefully we don't lose. Go USA.
We always want to hear from you. Do you have a story? Do you have an idea? Please connect. Text us at 519-984-2051. You can also email us at windsor@cbc.ca. Stay with us. Chris will be here after the break with more weather. Chris Potter is back with us now for more weather. And Chris, it probably hasn't been that long, but it feels like a long time since we've been above that 0 mark. It's been so cold.
Yeah, especially the past couple of days, the past couple of nights. Obviously, we had the weekend storm and then the cold. The cold is still with us today, and it will slowly start to improve if you're not a fan of the cold over the next couple of days, especially Monday, Tuesday, and possibly Wednesday of next week, where we could climb easily, not only just above 0, but into the mid-single digits in a lot of locales. Something to look forward to. Normal daytime high, believe it or not, 1.2 for today. Normal overnight low is -6.4. And once again, temperatures peaked below that today. We're at -6 currently in Windsor, -9 in Toronto, -9 in Ottawa, and closer to home, -7 in Chatham-Kent, -7 in Sarnia, and -10 already in Kitchener. With the winds, it's feeling like -18 in Kitchener. So the wind's still a factor. The winds will start to die down through the overnight, and that's going to shut off the lake effects flurries that we've been seeing. Winter weather travel advisory in for Goderich, Grand Bend, in towards the London area. If that's where you're headed, obviously be prepared for reduced visibilities. And that's what we're seeing right now churning off of Lake Huron, especially just west of London, west of the airport at least. Windsor, you're starting to clear out from those flurries, and that's going to be the scenario for the rest of the evening and into the overnight. Now, in terms of how things will play out, there we go. Lots of cloud cover left over for this evening. As we head through the overnight, some clear breaks develop, flurries absent. So it looks fairly cloudy, but dry. Generally a mix of sun and cloud anticipated for the day tomorrow. A little bit more cloud then moves in for Saturday. I can't rule out a couple of rogue snowflakes, but that's basically all we're going to see. It's still going to be a quiet day, good for travel if you have big or small plans for Saturday. More of the same as we step forward into Sunday, but there will be a slightly higher risk of a few flurries. But once again, this is not accumulating snow. So you're going to have a decent weekend, especially with those temperatures beginning to climb. Through the overnight, temperatures anywhere from -9 to -11. Through the daytime hours tomorrow, temperatures should peak at around -3 for Windsor, Leamington, -6 in London, feeling anywhere from -10 to -7. Once we get into Saturday, a touch cooler, -4. And once we get into Sunday, though, those southwesterly winds do indeed kick in, and that will allow temperatures to climb towards that 0-degree mark. Lots of cloud, a chance of some overnight snowfall as we head through the overnight. Into Monday, the snowfall risk should diminish very quickly. Temperatures should actually climb above 0 in the pre-dawn hours, if you will. So anything that we see on Monday should be in the liquid varieties, showers and or drizzle. I'm going to favor drizzle, still umbrella worthy enough. I'm not going to do much to dent the snow that's already on the ground. Tuesday, we have the chance of showers as well with a high of 4. So things are looking up temperature-wise, and instead of snow, we see liquid precipitation.
Yeah. And look at all those above zeros.
I know.
It's happening.
I want to point this out, too. I'll be dramatic. 3 dropping and holding at 1 for the overnight, Monday night into Tuesday.
All right.
A bit of a
Thank
thaw.
you, Chris. And thanks to you all for watching. See you tomorrow.